So, I'm going to get started, give you a little bit of background on who I am, and then we'll get into why we're all here today, and then we'll welcome our guest of honor, Mr. Eddie Stevens, with his awesome presentation. So, for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is AJ Brockman, and you are here among my vision. This is all something that is taking a lot of work and dedication, but I'll give you the whole background. So let me start a long time ago, long time ago. Let me get to the far, no. Yeah, it's totally. So, again, my name is AJ Brockman. As you can see, I'm in a wheelchair. I've been in a chair since I was 2 years old. I'm diagnosed with a condition, neuromuscular disease. It's called SMA, spinal muscular atrophy. And for those of you that aren't familiar with it, the best way to describe it is basically a very prolonged ALS. So it's a neurological condition where I still have all feeling and movement, that the nerves that control the muscles just die away. So whatever the muscles I was born with is pretty much the muscles I have, and it doesn't affect me cognitively, but as life progresses, I get weaker and weaker, and it affects some respiratory issues, and you usually end up kicking the bucket from other complications, not really SMA. That's what SMA leads to. So all that being said, I've never looked at it as a disability. I've had some great parents in my life and surrounded by people that have really encouraged me to go after my dreams. Growing up as a kid, I had a very normal childhood, normal, quote unquote, but I was into skateboarding, surfing, would videotape. I was part of the deal. I couldn't skateboard, obviously, but my role was a videographer. So we would strap a camera to my chair, and I would follow along and videotape all the skateboarding. So it was cool to be involved any way that I could. I actually was a roller hockey goalie at one point. There's a video floating around on YouTube that is pretty funny to watch. But yeah, when I was a kid, again in middle school, I was part of the roller hockey league. They told me I couldn't do it, and when they told me I couldn't do it, it's when I made sure I could do it. So that was really a great experience. And then I've also really always been artistic. I grew up in front of the camera as well. I was part of the Jerry Lewis MDA Labor Day Telethon. I was never part of the national telethon, but we always had the local segments, and I helped to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars for the NBA as a kid. So philanthropy and being in front of the camera, that was always a big part of my life, for sure. And that really probably grew into my passion for the arts. I've always been artistic. I love to paint and draw. When I could use my hands a little bit better, I would paint and draw traditionally. And as I lost the use of my hands, I kind of had to figure out how to still create. So I took a course, an elective course in high school called Commercial Art Technology, and now it's more commonly known as graphic design. And so I learned how to use a computer and computer software to create art and still express myself. And that was really a turning point in my life where I figured out that I could make a living and pursue what I wanted to do. So I ended up graduating high school, went on to pursue a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree here in Florida. I went to a small private school in Boca called DMAC, Digital Media Arts College, which is now part of Linton University, and I actually graduated valedictorian with a Bachelor of Fine Arts. So that was a really great accomplishment, and I was hired directly out of directly out of college by one of my professors. So that was a really cool thing, and when I talked to a lot of younger kids I try to always tell them, you never know where your next opportunity is going to come from. And my professor really saw, my hustle and being a star student, and I never thought he'd offer me a job. I was just trying to do my best. And at the end, when I graduated, he gave me a job, and I went on as a lead designer right out the gate. I worked in the corporate world with him in the agency for about 2 years. I did websites, logos, you name it, everything, and I just got really burned out. I got tired of doing what everybody else wanted me to do. When you're this artist and you're jaded by what you want to do, well, the client is the one paying the bills, so you have to really adhere to what they say. And I made a decision one day that was really crazy, but I just quit. I quit a great paying job and decided to focus on my own art. And by that time, I had kind of developed a lot of my own techniques on how to do what I call digital painting, which is essentially painting on the computer. And that's really where everything started to click for me. And I started doing art shows. Some of you may remember me from Sunfest and Mardi Gras. I did all the local shows. And I have a video now that I'm going to show you guys that kind of recaps all that. And this was shot as a miniature documentary that was done about 4 years ago, or a little more now, 6 years ago. And it kind of recaps my journey up into that. And then I'm going to come back and tell you what we've been up to now. So here's my documentary, Painting with One Finger.
My name is AJ Brockman, and I am a digital painter. Digital painting itself has been around for a while, but it's been in different, arenas like concept art and architectural drawings and stuff like that. So I'm kind of bringing it to the next level in the fine art aspect. I started in art because I love it. I have a passion for it. When I was younger, I would paint traditionally. I used the paintbrush and acrylics just like any other artist would. And as my disease progressed, I began to use the use of my hands and was forced to transfer into more of a digital medium. I was fortunate enough to develop and understand how to use the computer and computer software to my advantages early on, and that's kind of how it started.
What I wanted to show you today, AJ, is a couple of pieces that are produced from our ceramic facility at the Lighthouse Art Center. And this first one thing that is one of my favorites is noticing artists who are blossoming, who are coming into their own in art. And one such person is AJ Brockman. When one of his works was first submitted to a call for artists called Contempo last year, I noticed it was a very interesting, completely something that a technique that I really hadn't seen before. And I thought that before I met the young man. Once I met him, I realized what a truly exceptional human being he is. And I've seen his career really take off.
I paint with my left hand, but more specifically, I only paint with one finger on my left hand. I really only have, 2 or 3 inches range of motion, left to right and up and down. I mean, that's it right there. And I'm able to use the mouse pad to do the brush strokes. And, I always say that if J-Lo is gonna insure her butt for $1 million, I should insure my hand for $1 million, because it's definitely my $1 million finger.
It takes an awful lot to take care of AJ. And it takes even more to be able to help AJ be the artist that he's becoming or become. And what I mean by that is that there's always been a certain aspect of care that he's needed. His vision is there, and he gives me the direction to get that finger in the right spot on that glide plate so that he can create what he needs to create, so that he's not fatigued, so that he can do it over and over and over again until he gets the piece that he wants. Putting his foot up, just doing everything that needs to be done to help him be the creative artist that he's become.
How are you guys? Yeah. Yeah, thank you, yeah. Good morning. We're here at the Palm Beach Gardens Green Market today, and I try to do at least one show every week, and today's the day. So this show is super important to me because it happens to be my hometown, and I get to see a lot of my friends and fans and people that I've grown up with. So it's going to be a great show and a great day. And the bigger one is more 4 to 5. So yeah, thank you so much. I know, I wish, right? Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, all done on the computer. I do it all. Getting out and doing shows is not only important, but it's kind of cool in respects to what I'm doing. You know, I'm introducing people that maybe have never seen or even heard of digital painting or creating artwork on the computer, you know, aside from digital photography. And I'm kind of bringing that to a new audience and opening people's eyes to that. And people, when they look at me, their first impression is that I couldn't create stuff like this, or, you know, they don't even know that I'm the artist. But opening their eyes to this and really showing them how it's done, that my finger is, you know, essentially the paintbrush to a traditional medium. You know, that's how it works, and it's really cool to see people when they get it. My subject matter has a wide range of things, people, objects. I don't limit myself to a certain genre or a certain subject matter. Some of it is stuff that I wish maybe I could experience myself that in real life I couldn't do because of physical limitations. So maybe I want to paint that out. Zoom in here. I'll work on the eye a little more. Let's see. Go ahead and start fleshing out the eye a little better. There's really not a lot of other digital painters out there right now, especially representing their work as fine art. So I really draw on more traditional medium, and guys like, you know, Malcolm Farley here does some great action portraiture, and really enjoy his work. And David Ewell, one of the premier Harley-Davidson artists, does some really great stuff. I love his old style and vintage atmosphere. And even guys like Jeff Finley and everybody over at Go Media, they're doing some really great work, and they're designers. So I draw inspiration from all kinds of different media. One thing that I'm super excited about is the opportunity to work with the city of West Palm Beach. I have an upcoming deal where my artwork's going to be in multiple city locations and very accessible to the public. And it's super exciting because it can bring digital painting and my technique to a whole new audience.
Settings for exposure to great art are as important. You know, that backdrop is just as important in really fully appreciating the artwork. So I want to be able to do it justice by putting it in, you know, the greatest space that we have. And I think we'll be able to come up with something that Mr. Brockman is going to be happy with and will say yes to. Well, I'm showing AJ where I want to have him put a show together and have him work with us to do something pretty special between here and the pavilion and the nighttime things down there. It still is astonishing to me to look at work that you think is a real picture or you think is a real painting, and to understand, you know, that there's actual science that can trick the eye. I mean, I'm excited about that.
I'm not a very religious person, but I think that, you know, we more along the lines of fate. You know, like I've been given this hand in life, and it's, you know, I have so many drawbacks in certain areas, but I still have my one finger, and, I use that because that's really all I have left, and I'm able to exploit that to still create and do what I want to do. And I feel fortunate that I at least have that finger to still work with. And when the day comes where I don't have my finger anymore, where my disease progresses to where I can't do what I'm doing now, then I'll move on to the next step and see where this goes.
Right on, thank you guys. So yeah, that does a better job than I could ever do on really giving you the full picture on what my art is and how I create. And if you're really interested, there's my website, singlehandedstudio.com, or you can just Google my name, AJ Brockman. I have a tutorial on literally how I create a painting from beginning to end. So, like I said, this video was shot about 6 years ago, and if you haven't noticed by now, my personality, I don't get a lot of sleep. I'm always trying to do the next big thing. And right after this, at one of my art shows, I was approached by a manager. So basically a guy, like if you were an artist or a musician, where you would hire a manager to try to get your work out there in front of the right people. He was the same guy in the art world. So I met with him, we put a deal together, and after working with him for a few months, he approached me on this idea that he had, and it's something that I kind of had in the back of my mind as well about, what if I could choose one person in the entire world, who would it be that could help me really get my art out there? And after some deliberating, and minus your political views or not, I thought, what more honor would it be to do a portrait of the president? So I approached Art about this, my manager, and he had some contacts. And long story short, in 2012, I spent almost 6 months creating a portrait of President Obama. And it was the only portrait that included his whole family and his dog, Bo. It was the first portrait with his dog. And so I did all of this, never knowing if I would ever actually get to present it to him or meet him. Again, my manager had some connections, but the president's a pretty hard guy to get a hold of. So I did all this. I submitted everything to his people, and was eagerly waiting by the computer for the email, and nothing. Weeks went by, crickets. Nobody was emailing me back, and one day out of the blue, I got an email from one of his press secretaries, that said, "Hey, we got your portrait. Obama's going to be down in South Florida campaigning." This was right around the time of re-election. I'm sure that was good press as well, but he said, "Hey, why don't you come meet him and present it?" And so I was blown away. It was at that particular one was at the convention center in West Palm Beach, and I showed up. I had my painting. Everything was ready to go. We get up front, and they're like, "Who are you? We have no idea who you are." So long story short, again, there was a major miscommunication, and I didn't even get to present it to him that day. So it was another huge disappointment. But again, I knew that I did it. I was able to use it, my press on my end, and literally 3 days later, we were reached back out to again and said, "Listen, we're really sorry. They were supposed to expect you," and this was from Obama's inner circle, and they said, "Hey, he's going to be down there again in a few months at the Delray Tennis Center, and it might even be better because you'll be able to actually have some one-on-one time." So again, we went down. I was like, "All right, well, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you." So I wasn't really prepared. If it didn't happen, it didn't happen, but it happened, and I was able to go in. and spend literally about 3 minutes with President Obama, which sounds like a short amount of time, but with the president, it was pretty amazing. So I had given him the original portrait, which was printed on canvas. It was enormous. It was about 4 feet wide by about 5 feet tall, and we gave it to him, and he assured me that he would take it home on Air Force One. Again, maybe empty promises or not, and hang it in his one of his private libraries. And literally, again, probably that next week, there was a picture in the New York Times by one of his photographers of my portrait being carried off of Air Force One. So he's a man of his word, and it was pretty an amazing experience to have all that. That was probably the pinnacle of my career, and that image of the portrait being carried off Air Force One was voted one of the top 10 images by the New York Times of all 2012. So again, some really great accomplishments, and so after that was kind of the highlight of my career, and all along, all this time, as I began networking and making friends in the art community, I wanted to have my own gallery, and it was really hard to have my own gallery because of the adage of starving artists. I mean, it's true, it's hard to pay the bills. So we had come up with this idea on how to incorporate a new idea around in our gallery. So we said, why don't we do a co-op? So a typical artist co-op is where a lot of artists chip in to help lower their overhead, and they volunteer to run it, and they sell their work. So that was the basis of our idea, but we said, well, what would make that better? And the answer to that was beer. Beer makes everything better. So we opened the Brewhouse Gallery, which is next door here in the Lake Park Arts District. And back then, it was almost this entire plaza was empty at that point. And we took a chance. We opened it up. We said we were gonna, failure was not an option. And we opened the Brewhouse Gallery. And from day one, it's been a smashing success. I mean, we, again, the way our business model works is a lot of typical art galleries, they charge you a commission on your work. So they let you display, but they take 40, sometimes 50% on art. And by the time you pay for your material and everything else, the artist doesn't make anything. So we charge a low monthly rate, and the artist gets to keep 100% of their sales. We don't take any commission, and we do nightly events, and again, the beer helps. Once they have a few beers, they really like the painting on the wall. So it really has been synergistic, and in a typical art gallery, you get maybe 10 visitors, an entire week. We're getting almost 100 people a night. So the exposure is a lot greater and really something special. So we, again, with the success at Brewhouse, we were able to expand, and we opened up into the other side. For those of you that have been to Brewhouse, if not, I encourage you to hang out at the after party next door. But we expanded into the other room, added about 40 additional taps. And for those of you that aren't craft beer drinkers, we have a lot of options. But when we expanded into the next room, it really started a movement. People saw the success that we were having. They said, Lake Park, I mean, where's that? Isn't that Lake Worth? It's like, no, it's not Lake Worth. And nobody really knew where we were. So when that happened, we started getting a lot of publicity. People started coming to more and more events. And before we knew it, the landlord of the entire plaza really didn't want to be a landlord anymore. Her name was Sue Ellen Mosler, a really great elderly lady that was a supporter of the arts for a long time. And she saw what we were doing and really believed in the vision and what we had going on. And she made us an offer that we couldn't turn down. And so 2 years after that, in 2016, we ended up purchasing the entire plaza. So when that happened, we were all in. I mean, at that point we were pretty much all in anyway, but when that happened, that's really what sparked the Lake Park Arts District. And we went from an 80% vacancy rate to almost an 80% occupancy rate. So we were able to turn around the whole plaza. We brought in one of the first only sanctioned or allowed tattoo studios. Again, the city was a little stuck in their ways and didn't allow any tattoo parlors, but we brought them in. They're an art gallery / tattoo parlor. We have a great digital media firm that's in here now, a lot of art-related businesses that complement all of what we're doing. And the crown jewel of all of that is where we all are right now, the Kelsey Theater. So again, for some history, Kelsey, the name of Lake Park, Henry Kelsey was the guy that founded Lake Park. And back in the 20s, it was called Kelsey City. So that's where the name comes from. And back then, Kelsey City was a place to be. All the rich Palm Beachers, Harry Flagler, all those guys would come and they would party here. This was like the cultural hub and where all the locals came. So after reading about all that, that really helped me want to bring it back and inspired a lot of what you see. So this was an old, again, more history. It was called the Kelsey Club before we took over. And it was more of a rock concert, which we still do now, but it was definitely a little more grimy back then. And when that shut down, it was the Mozart Theater. And they did a lot of independent film and independent theater, and that was really important to what we're doing as well. So we wanted to combine all that together, and now we do many different events here. You name it. We've had everything from Henry Rollins to the Dead Kennedys to a dog circus to a cat show. So we really do everything that and support all forms of art. And I think that's really important that we don't pigeonhole what we consider art and add to the culture and the community that we've built. And it's really been an amazing grassroots effort. And again, the reason that we're all here tonight is for Kelsey Cares. And we were approved finally after a year of waiting for our official 501c3. And that happened in July of last year. So our new spearhead now is Kelsey Cares, and the mission of Kelsey Cares is to fund art, theater, music, film, and cultural development through community outreach by providing subsidies for productions, events, artists, and musicians to carry out their mission. So what that means to me is we are able to provide subsidies for artists and actually pay them for their work. Believe it or not, a lot of people ask not only musicians but fine artists as well to just play or do their craft for exposure. And that really goes against everything that we believe. So Kelsey Cares helps underwrite all of that and give artists a platform to share without financial barriers. So one of our major projects, and what you can see behind me, what was there earlier, was our Back Alley Mural project. And when we took over the building, we lobbied the city to allow us to do a mural. And believe it or not, the town of Lake Park had absolutely no codes or any regulation on outdoor murals or public art. So we literally helped the town write the code for what we're doing. And I'm going to welcome to the stage one of my good friends, Craig McInnes. He's our art director on the project. And Craig, why don't you just tell everybody a little bit about how you got involved here and what how the mural project goes.
Hello, everyone. How are you? Let's give it up for AJ, first of all. All of that inspiring story. The years pass by and leads up to this moment right here, and you're here for this moment, so we appreciate that. I got involved with AJ and Brewhouse early on by just kind of stumbling into the place, because I'm just a networker type like you are. And I heard about it, and I was like, I gotta see this. And they were still under construction, and I moseyed my way in, and I said, kind of like I would to any other entrepreneur, like, how can I help you? You know, I figure if I can help you, you can probably help me, and we'll just see how this thing turns out. So here we are years later, 4, I guess, and because you're coming up on your 4-year anniversary at Brewhouse, don't miss it. But one of his brainchilds was this back alley, because it's just a blank wall, and it's an alley, and wouldn't it be great? I'm an artist, so any wall that's blank is like, come on, put some color on it, even if it's abstract. So his brainchild was to attack this back wall. So we reached out to some of the premier muralists here locally and asked them to participate. We didn't know how it was going to turn out. We didn't know how it was going to be funded. We just knew that we wanted to do it. So much like a lot of his story, it just kind of manifested itself through the fact that, okay, we want this thing. Let's find out what the obstacles are, let's find out what the challenges are, and let's just start knocking them out of the way. Of course, money would be one of those first things, because as he stated, mission of Kelsey Cares, or the mission of AJ before Kelsey Cares even existed, was that an artist should be paid for his or her time. So that's where it came about. Now, we did reach out to artists who were like, I don't care, man, I'll do this wall. You know, I love AJ, I'll do the wall anyway. And that's a sweet sentiment, but you know, professional artists need to be paid. So we're moving into our 4th phase, which I find amazing because, you know, Lake Park Art District being a budding art district, much like that of a Wynwood from 15, 20 years ago type of thing. To have this kind of momentum already really gives me a lot of hope. And I want to say this, people like you, actually, by supporting a budding art district, you are helping to keep that kind of thing alive, keeping that momentum moving, keeping artists and musicians working, which, as you all know, you probably wouldn't be sitting here if you didn't agree, that culture is the cornerstone of the beginning of any good community. So I want to thank you guys. Before anything else happens tonight, I want to thank you guys very much, and I appreciate you letting me share the stage with you tonight. We're moving into phase 4. That's going to be a culminating event with the 4-year anniversary for Brewhouse. There's going to be tons of music, tons of art, tons of great food, and the unveiling of phase 4, which you can see. I imagine you mocked it up, of course. The Digital Wizard has put the art that doesn't even exist yet, really, up on the wall to cover phase 2, I believe it is, that we're going over. So this is a rotating mural that's going to be it's a cultural phenomenon as far as I'm concerned, and it's a destination, which is what the whole art district basically is.
100%, Craig, yeah. And Craig's been with me from the beginning. We clicked on a personal level, but also on a creative level. And when we had this idea, we built a dream team around it. And behind Kelsey is the very first phase. And we're going to leave that one until next year, on year 5. We'll be painting over that. But like Craig said, we're starting again. And one of the things, too, I wanted to mention, I kind of glazed over it earlier, but every project that we've undertaken has been completely funded by people like you guys. And what I mean by that is we don't have any government subsidies, we don't have any grant money. It's literally been, you know, $10 here, $5 there, $100 here, $1,000 there. And that really shows that it's been a grassroots effort of everybody in the community that really rallies behind it. And before Kelsey Cares even existed, we were able to raise almost $50,000 to renovate the theater here, which is where you're in now. I mean, it was a dive before, and we were able to upgrade all the audio and really make this a great spot. And then subsequently, again, for every project that we've done with the mural, we've hit about 10,000, which is our goal That gets the artist paid. All of our material is paid for with the local business. Easel Art Supply, credit teachers for them, but they've been here for 30 years in Lake Park, and we order all of our paint from them. Nobody takes a salary. Kelsey Cares, the nonprofit itself, is again all volunteer based. I'm the board, or I'm the executive director, but we have a lot of the board members here tonight. Doug and Angel, I don't know if you guys are here. I'm sure you'll introduce yourselves as we go. But yeah, and they've been great. Sharon Felber, again, I don't know if she's here as well. Again, we built a really great team, and that's, even if you aren't able to contribute financially, it'd be great if, your contacts, any ideas that you might have for some fundraisers. Again, some other projects that we support, again, which I know is near and dear to Greg's heart, we've helped fund Continuum, which is another project that a local artists are involved in West Palm. Do you want to maybe tell everybody what that's about? And we gave a $1,000 grant to Continuum.
Yeah, so I'm part of a pop-up gallery that happens in downtown West Palm Beach. It's another effort to support local artists looking for venues that they might usually not have access to. This year we were in City Place, which was just a blessing. And it is backed by a startup, not-for-profit itself called No More Starving Artists, which really, the name gets right to the heart of it. It's like, we don't want anyone like perpetuating that stereotype any longer. Kelsey Cares got its official status right as we were looking for donors. As luck would have it, we were looking for donors for something called Young Masters. I see some young artists out here. I see one young face right here in the front. If you're a young artist and you're just in middle school or high school, look, some of us are really paying attention. We want you to come up and be the next generation. If you're a muralist, maybe this is on your horizon. So what Continuum does is supports not just artists from Bach Middle School and from Dreyfus School of the Arts, but from any school, anyone who is looking to show work, do work, learn from professionals. Your $1,000 gift from Kelsey Cares to No More Starving Artists for the Continuum show helped kids have free education from professional artists and opportunity to show and sell. We sold a lot of student work inside a professional grade gallery show inside the confines of City Place. So this is all this hustle that artists do on a regular anyway. It's just that those of us who like to do that greater good thing, like and AJ has done it his whole life, is you want to reach and you want to spread that wealth. If you're doing something that benefits many, right? It's that whole thing of if the water rises, all the boats rise, right? So we want to bring all the artists together. Those who have not shown yet, those who are so young they haven't had an opportunity to yet, those that are maybe hiding in their studio because they're introverts. We want to bring them all out. And I will say Lake Park pretty much embodies that. Everyone's welcome. Everybody. Professional, not professional. It doesn't matter.
100%, man. Yeah, no doubt. And again, I mean, we say local, and what we mean by local, it's Northern Palm Beach County. I mean, whether it's happening in West Palm, whether it's happening in Lake Worth, Jupiter, you name it. I mean, as long as it fits our ideals, and like Greg said, that's what we're all about. And another great thing that we do is work with VSA, a very special artist. They're a state-run program for artists with disabilities. Kelsey Cares underwrites a wall space at Brewhouse next door for them, and we bring them in, we do a reception, they feel like rock stars, they're able to have their art on display, we do a little cocktail time, juice for those that are not on drinking age, and then I do a speech there as well, not only disability focused on what you can accomplish anything, but also for artists in general, something me and Craig talk about a lot. You have to be a businessman or woman as well when it comes to making a living from your art, and we try to drive home the fact that when somebody wants to buy your art, they're buying a piece of you. So you have to be able to really give them your story, make it unique, and really try to drive that home, because that's just as important as what it is you're painting on a canvas. So we give all that again, free of charge advice on how to make a living as an artist. So, all right, I know we're running a little late on time. I'm going to wrap a little bit more here up with Craig, and then we're going to some questions. So hang out on stage for me, Craig. But I'm going to say, another big part of all this is building a team. And Eddie Stevens here tonight, he's part of my team now. And I have an amazing group of people, Craig, everybody I've mentioned, that really help make this all possible. And if you're an entrepreneur yourself, or you're just a young kid trying to figure out the world, don't be afraid to ask for help. Call on different mentors in your life, and really try to build the people around you, because if you surround yourself with the right people, you can accomplish some really amazing things. So that's a really, really important piece of advice I'm going to say. Again, we set out 3 years ago to do Brew House, and now this is transformed into so much more. And we never, when we went into business, it was never focusing on, ROIs and business reports and a good business plan. I mean, if we went to the bank and showed them our thoughts, they'd probably laugh at us. But, and really, I think that's the true measure of success, is when, you do something without expecting anything in return. And that's really worked out well for us. So, above all, I gotta thank my mom. She was in the video. She's here backstage somewhere. Totally. She's been my biggest influence in life. My business partner now. She's here day to day. I have the vision, but my mom, keeps me grounded and goes, what are you thinking? We're not going to do that. Yeah, she wishes she would say that more, and we wouldn't be where we are. So, no, she's been great, and we're a family-owned and operated business here at Kelsey and Brew House, and we're here every day just trying to hustle and keep the momentum going. And then, last but not least, we all deal with struggles on a daily basis. Mine is more apparent, obviously the elephant in the room, being in a chair, but I can truly say that my success is a direct result of a positive attitude. And if you can have a positive attitude, you can accomplish really anything. And always try to focus on, what you can do rather than what you can't do. And moving forward, I think that's the best advice that I can give. And I appreciate all of you being here tonight. Again, I get a lot of comments that, oh, well, AJ, you're an inspiration, man. And, if I can be inspirational, then that's great. But really, at the end of the day, it's about, just trying to make the best of the life that we have. And again, I think I've pretty much done a lot of that. I even have a beautiful fiance now and a little kid, so my buddy Abel, my boy. So things have really been great, and we're hoping to continue all of that through Kelsey Care. So thank you guys for being here. And I think we may have 1 or 2 more minutes. I don't want to cut into Eddie too much, but if you want to put the house lights up, guys, for 1 minute, and do we have any questions? Me and Craig, we're going to take a few questions. Anybody? Feel free to raise your hand, yell it out. Yeah, go ahead, brother.
I saw some really good art up there. Is there anywhere to purchase some of your work?
Yeah, absolutely. So my art, personally, my entire catalog is at singlehandedstudio.com. But if you go next door to Brewhouse Gallery, I have a whole wall there myself. Usually I give up my wall so that we can have another artist be there. But this round, I happen to be there. We update our art at Brewhouse every 3 months as well, which is one thing I didn't really mention. So it's always something new and fresh. And I think even some of my art is in the lobby here at Kelsey, so you can check that out. I have art all over the place. I don't even remember where it is anymore, but it's better than being in a closet. So, anybody else? Yeah, go ahead, man. On the left? Yeah.
You.
Yeah, no way. Yeah.
I have a question about, we always hear Bob and Dreyfus, but there's a lot of other art schools here in Palm Beach County, like Duncan Middle School who has art, theater, and I don't know if they know about you guys, but are you in the schools? Because these kids would love to read the children.
No doubt. That's a great question. I'll let you speak on that too, Craig. So I'm a graduate of Duncan Middle. I went there. I think we even have Miss Griffith, one of the teachers at Duncan, is our concession helper for tonight. But yeah, I really enjoy going to schools and doing presentations. I'd love to do more. Craig, I know you're pretty involved, right?
The Young Masters thing that I mentioned that we do through Continuum, being that Continuum is young, and so is No More Starving Artists, just like Kelsey Cares. It's been more on the onus of the school to find us. And those were the low-hanging fruit, of course, Bach and Dreyfus. But there were kids from other schools. Great, and I'm going to give you a card when I come off the stage. But yeah, that is our goal. All inclusive, all inclusive is the goal, because there's so much talent everywhere. I mean, I didn't go to a school of the arts, and none of my artist friends that I hang with closely really did either. That's what we glommed onto. So yeah, we want that to happen for everybody.
Absolutely, we'd love to be a part. Anybody else? Other questions? No? Yes, go ahead, right in front.
Do you only do like painting art, or do you have like photography art?
Yeah, so that's a good question. A lot of people think that what I do is a form of photography, but my process, and again, it's hard to see it in the video, but if you go to my website, you get to see literally me creating a piece from beginning to end. So really, everything that I'm doing now is computer-based, and I use photo reference, but they're not like copies of photos or, photos that I would take and then run a filter on or something like that. But I've been so busy here, I run a lot of the day-to-day booking, and I never thought I'd be doing what I'm doing now as an artist, running multiple venues and trying to keep the lights on. But so unfortunately that's taken some time away from my art, but as with all things, it's about getting it up off the ground, and again, like I said, building a team around me that really believes in the vision and supports, and people I trust to further the vision, and then I can get back to more art. So yeah, awesome. Anybody else? No? All right, well, thank you all. Please consider donating. We're going to open up, again, Eddie is going to give a great presentation, but in about 1 week, by April 1st, which is Monday, right, or Tuesday, we're going to do a fundraising campaign on Indiegogo as well. So, again, if you'd like to learn more, you can visit that, but we are taking donations in the lobby tonight. If you introduce yourself to Nikki, she's at the ticket booth, and we'd be happy to take any credit card or payment that you have. And we have an awesome brick program, which was the last thing I wanted to mention. For $125, you can get a engraved brick at the front of Kelsey Theater, and I think that's really an awesome way to be a part of our arts district. Your name, your loved one, your business, really, it will be here literally in the ground forever.
Forever. This art district is going nowhere, so you'll be there, you're immortalized.
Totally, so that's a really exciting project that we're finally able to bring to life. It's been about a year in the making. We started that project and didn't realize how complicated bricks were, but they're pretty complicated. So, but we're good to go now. So, all right, thank you all, and I
Appreciate your time.
I find myself in a Cub Scout shirt. I'm the Tiger leader. How? Eddie Stevens. We spend that year camping, hanging out with our kids, building Pinewood Derby, and I find myself in two things. I have a friend, and I have an inspiration. Somebody who made me get up off that couch. Fast forward a few years, I'm no longer just a Tiger leader. I'm assistant Cub master. 5 years pass. Our boys are going to St. Anne's together. Because not only are they involved in leadership, Center for Child Counseling taking my place on the board, they're also volunteering at Big Dog Bridge. They give. I end up with a dog. Well, my wife ends up with a dog. But let's come back to Leadership Grow. Leadership Grow, we bring our teams here last year, September, October. Missed the Kelsey Theater, the Brewhouse Gallery. Eddie's inspired. When Eddie's inspired, he doesn't do what I do. Write a check, post on Facebook. Yeah, like, click some likes here. Eddie gets involved. That's why we're here tonight. Eddie gets involved. He inspires us, tries to make us a more genuine self. So tonight we're talking about living an extraordinary life. I'm going to get off the stage now. I'm the one he's inspired to be more genuine, to be myself with my talents. So, we're going to bring him to the stage, let him inspire you to be more genuine self, to let that infectious energy help you learn to live an extraordinary life. Ladies and gentlemen, Eddie Stevens.
Good evening. Happy Passover. And thank you for coming tonight. This is kind of a neat evening. AJ, thank you for inviting me and allowing me to do this. Bill, wonderful words. The best 11th graders in Palm Beach County. We have the honor of taking them once a month to different places in Palm Beach County. And about 6 months ago, we came here to AJ's brew house, and he spoke to them. And he taught us, we've been visiting a couple of years, and this is the first year I learned about Kelsey Cares. And that was a very inspirational moment for me, which kind of led this to happen. So I walk up to AJ and I said, well, you know, you have this 501c3, let's get some money for it. $5,000 to raise. And AJ said, well, that's great, but what happens if we don't make enough money to pay for the theater that night? Because it costs money just for an artist to come here and put this on. There's people working, there's bartenders, there's security. So I sent out a little message to my friends, and just a couple of emails, and I said, I have a really good cause, and I get to do something really neat for a great organization. And within 48 hours, we received over $2,000 from people just wanting to support this purpose. And their names are up on the screen right now. The Smith family, I think they're here. Family Software, the divorce attorney in the family. R.T. White. We'll be at the Improv, April 10th. Julie Hirschman. Lester. Daniel Smith. Gary Lester from the Border. Monty Resnick. One of his daughters are in our program. Matt Benzine is here. Matthew Lundy. We like Matt. We like Matt. And of course, Ward Damon. I have a particular love for Ward Damon because that's where I work, and I never thought I would love like where I worked. And I was kind of a loner, and for 10 years I worked on my own because I just wanted to do my own thing. And then these people like invited me to a Christmas party, and I saw this incredible spirit. So I'm really happy that I work with cool people, and I think it's like an inspiration. And I'm very fortunate. But what I do for a living is high conflict matrimonial law, divorce law. And that can be really stressful at times. And it takes a toll. It's almost like drinking poison. The more you do it, the more it takes a toll on you. So it takes a great deal of self-care to stay sane. Despite my youthful appearance, I've been doing this almost 21 years, guiding, at this point, hundreds of couples through the process of separation. Sometimes it's peaceful and classy. Oftentimes not, and it's very difficult. And there's only so much of that I can do in a week. Like at 50, 60 hours, I can't drink any more poison. So I fill my life with other things that don't pay as well. Bill mentioned both of them, currently Center for Child Counseling. Renee has a table back there. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But they help kids that go through trauma. That's very important to me. Leadership Palm Beach County, great organization. I'm with a couple chairs. We take kids out once a month for 8 months. And I calculated how many hours Bill, Corey, and I spent just on this bus, planning the bus at our orientation. We had an 8-hour orientation, and we have monthly meetings. And the three of us have already collectively put in over 300 hours this year on this program. We don't get paid a penny financially, but it's probably the most enriching thing that I get to do is work with these young kids. And 2 of them are here today filming us, so thank you, Hayden and Gavin, for coming out tonight. That's like me in a nutshell. That's what I do with my time. And I have learned lessons over my existence. And we're going to get into some of that stuff. And nothing I'm going to tell you is original thought. These are just lessons that have divinely been placed in front of me at particular points in time. And they were transformative to me. And if they did not happen at specific points in time, I would not be who I am today. So I'm going to share some of that with you today. Some of you may think it's hokey, that's cool. But some of you may actually learn something that you didn't know before about yourself. And I learned this all when I was 15 and a half years old in a 6-hour period. And that changed the trajectory of my life. And we'll get into that. But first, I got to introduce a few concepts. We're going to talk about math. Right? Doesn't that sound fun? So I have to, you have a gland here that sometimes opens if you think about different thoughts, your pineal gland. And we're all taught in school something called Euclid geometry, right? The real basic 2-dimensional a squared times b squared equals c squared. And now they're doing even kookier math in school that I don't understand. But there is much more to geometry than just the 2-dimensional images that you see. And there's really a connection to the universe with geometry that Euclid really couldn't articulate. But there's things out there that are so much more intricate, so much more meaningful, and so much more beautiful. Now, we're going to talk about magic. And I'm not, Bill told you I take rabbits out of hats because I am a magician, but beyond just the tricks, I believe in magic. I believe you can conjure magic. What I mean by that is you can channel energy and change things, hopefully for the positive. Some people do it for the negative. But you can learn how to actually channel energy and create a positive result. So we're going to talk about conjuring actual magic, not just 2-dimensional geometry. So this is kind of a neat symbol. This is the flower of life, and it is 19 circles interposed on each other. It looks like a flower, but it's really just a bunch of circles. Looks pretty neat, right? Where does this image come from? Nobody really knows, but they found a copy of this on a very old structure. This is the Temple of Osis in Egypt, and I don't know if you can see it, but it's laser etched into the building. And they say this image is over 8,000 years old, one of the oldest images in a building, not a cave, but this is the oldest image found in a building. So how could that be? How could that image have been created? Is there a pattern to the universe that's in that image? Are there aliens? Maybe. So here's the mathematician that I really like. His name is Leonardo Fibonacci. And he created something called the golden ratio, which is kind of neat. And this is where we get into divine geometry, because you're going to see some really neat connections. And if you don't know the Fibonacci sequence, here it is. You take 1 plus 1, you get 2. You take the subquotient and the sum, and you add them, and you get the next number in the sequence. So 1 plus 2 is 3. You take 2 plus 3, you get 5. 3 plus 5, you get 8. Are these just random numbers? Fibonacci was an observer of things, and when you plot this on a graph, you actually get a spiral. So that's kind of a weird coincidence, right? And you may not understand how those numbers turn into this spiral, so I'll show you. Right there. And the numbers get bigger and bigger, and the bigger they go, the proportions stay the same. And you can go up and down the spiral. So that is a pattern. And do these numbers, was that just a coincidence? Or is this a pattern that has something more than just Euclid geometry? So let's see where this pattern shows up. You see it in nature a lot. The nautilus shell is the biggest example. Weather systems, galaxies, they all fall into the exact same proportion. Almost everything in nature you can apply this proportion to. The human body, I'm going to show you how the human body meets the sequence in a number of ways. You have bones in your hands. The bones, the length of the bones, art, architecture, modern design, Darth Vader. I promise we're going to talk about Star Wars, because you'll see how that's important. Have you ever noticed how a tree grows? And they splinter off the limbs in the exact sequence of Fibonacci. Kind of crazy, right? Go home and check this out. This is what I was talking about. The dimensions of your bones follow this formula. So is this really just a mathematical coincidence? Or is this kind of a blueprint to creation? I kind of believe that there's more to it than just a coincidence. I don't really know exactly, because I don't understand it all yet, but it intrigues me. So that's the sacred geometry part. And I'm really not doing it justice, because there is so much more to it, and you can really go deep into the subject if you're inspired. Now I'm going to switch a little bit to science. We're going math, science, Star Wars. Trust me, we'll get there. So I've learned that as a kid, if you go through a traumatic incident, and they call them adverse childhood experiences. And this is why I love the Center for Child Counseling, because it is their job to help the children go through these things. And they also educate the community on becoming trauma-informed. And this is not new science. It's about 20 years old, that if you suffer trauma as a child, it's going to impact the chemical makeup of your brain. There's going to be a neurological disruption in your temporal lobe. And an adverse childhood experience could be many things. It could be you have an alcoholic parent, you have been a victim of abuse, you have seen an abuse, your parent is incarcerated, a parent died. There's a number of things that could affect you. This is an actual scan of a brain. The right one shows an abused child, and you can see the temporal lobes just very developed. And that's the part of your brain where you regulate your emotions, how you have relations with people. So if that is not properly formed, you're not going to have a very successful life. So you have to, Center for Child Counseling is letting everybody know that these kids who go through trauma, and I'm part of the court system, and I see some horrible things, and when I review their files, I see unspeakable trauma. It inspires me to want to help. So here's another example. I told you someone there would be 2 brain slides. They thought I was kidding. But it shows that there is a true neurological development. And this is accepted science. This isn't this is real. So they've created the ACE pyramid. You have the experience. You have this disruption in your brain. That leads to some type of social, emotional, or cognitive disruption, and that leads to risky behavior. And then eventually, it leads to disabilities, mental, social issues, eventually early death if there's not any intervention. So, without getting really into the specific details, I will share with you, I am a child of trauma. And when I took the ACE test, if you have a 3 or a 4, it's pretty rough. I had somewhere over 5. The number's kind of embarrassing. But all of my trauma kind of ended when I was 15. And this is sad, but my mom passed away. And at that point in my life, all the craziness and chaos stopped. And that's kind of where my real life began, because I was able to, I love my mom very much, she loved me, but I may not have come from the most functional family out there. And because I had these experiences, I did not have very good development up until I was 15. Fortunately, when my mom passed away, and there was a community that surrounded around me, teachers, a drama teacher, my friend's family, and they loved me. And even though I didn't have a mom, my dad wasn't always around, I got through it. And because I got through those experiences, I gained some strength. So my mom died in 1989, I was 15. This is my humanities teacher at the time. 2 weeks after my mom died, he showed us a PBS special in class. And the timing of this is, again, I don't understand it, but it has to be divine, because when I watched this program, it changed my entire life. And it was a program about Joseph Campbell. And the specific PBS story was called The Power of Myth, and it was a journalist, Bill Moyers, who interviewed Joseph Campbell. Raise some hands. How many people have heard of Joseph Campbell? I see about a third. So a third of you know what I'm about to talk about. Do you know Joseph Campbell's connection to Star Wars? If you do, raise your hand. Cool. I got you then. Joseph Campbell was a comparative mythologist. What is a comparative mythologist? Someone who compares a bunch of myths. And he came up with this thought that if you follow your bliss, if you do what you want, doors will open where before there were only walls. And that phrase is my mantra. Because if you do what you really love, and AJ kind of hit on this, things will happen in your life that would not have ordinarily happened. So you have to get on that track, and you really have to follow your bliss. So what Joseph Campbell did to reach this conclusion is he compared every story that was ever written in history. Incans, the American Indians, Hindu, the Bible, and he found a common theme. He called it a monomyth, the hero's journey. And in late 1950s, early 60s, he wrote this book called The Hero with 1,000 Faces. And really, this is just the template for this common story that we all share. And he was inspired by this philosopher named Carl Jung, who figured out there was something called archetypes. And there's a big debate. When we're born, are we tabula rosa? Are we a blank slate? Or do we have some inner knowledge already as part of our circuitry? Carl Jung believes that there were certain archetypes that everybody related to. Joseph Campbell built on that theory and discovered there's a common story. And he broke out the story into a formula. Whoa. So this is a big circle. And I like to think of it as a spiral, because every time you make a rotation, you're getting bigger, and your comfort zone is expanding. But the adventure starts, you get a call to adventure, there's an initiation. You pass into a supernatural realm. You go through experiences where you have a mentor, you have helpers, you have magical items that assist you. You have to go through kind of a resurrection. That resurrection is transformative. You get something out of it. You either get a prize, or maybe knowledge, or some special power, and eventually you return to your world. But now you're evolved, because you had to go through an ordeal. And that ordeal made you a stronger person. And if you're not willing to go outside your comfort zone, you're never going to face that ordeal, and your comfort zone will never expand. So George Lucas picked up that book. It's a young George Lucas on the left, and if you see the guy on the right that's looking up to him, that's Joseph Campbell. And this is in the 80s when George Lucas basically admitted he wrote Star Wars right off of Hero with a Thousand Faces. And that's why Star Wars is one of the movies that when you see it, it just kind of resonates with you. Because of all of these stories, and these stories were written that Joseph Campbell studied, they were all written before mass communication. So how is it possible that we have the same story? How is that even possible? But we do. And it's not just Star Wars. If you look at almost any hero movie book, whether it's contemporary, whether it's ancient, Homer, they all follow the same path. If you don't believe me, Google whatever you want to look up, monomyth, and it will tell you the steps of how it applies to these 12 steps. So we're going to talk about the steps for a second and relate them specifically to Star Wars. And you'll see why, because this will teach you something, that it's not just about storytelling. And I don't think we're tabula rosa, because otherwise, how could we possibly articulate the same story? So the first step is the hero starts in an ordinary world, a very bland world. Luke Skywalker, Star Wars 4, Tatooine. It was a desert. Doesn't get more barren than that. But he had ties to his ordinary world. He had family obligations. Things keep you tied to your ordinary world. Sometimes you're scared, you don't want to leave it because it's comfortable. And Joseph Campbell tells you at some point, you're going to get a call to adventure. For Luke, it was, "Help me, Obi-Wan, you're our only hope." Help. And that set off something. And Luke didn't even know what it was at the time, but it set off, that was his call to adventure. We all have calls to adventures. Are we paying attention to them? Are we observing life? Or are we letting those opportunities go? Joseph Campbell says that if you see your call to adventure, initially you're going to refuse it. Just like Luke did. He said, "I can't go with you, Obi-Wan. I got to stay on the farm. I got to help Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru." Well, there was a consequence to that decision. Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru didn't do too well. So there is, and if you read the Bible, something very similar happened to Josephine, where she became Saul. But these examples are in every story, right? These are the other steps of the hero's journey. You meet a mentor, Obi-Wan, Han Solo. You cross a threshold. You leave a bar and go out into a galaxy that you've never seen before. You have tests, you have allies, you make enemies. You have an approach to the ordeal, you survive the ordeal, you get the reward, you have the road back, and you return with the elixir. And that's whatever you gain, that transformative energy that you have now earned from surviving the ordeal. So is this just storytelling, or is there something much more meaningful to this that we should be paying attention to? I believe that it is just an inspiration to teach us that we can do whatever we want. And these stories kind of help us realize that the only thing holding you back is yourself. Talking about the comfort zone, here's your definition. They call it a comfort zone for a reason. It's comfortable. And sometimes it's scary to leave your comfort zone. And sometimes you have reasons not to, like family calling you back home. But if you never expand it and if you never step out of it, you're never going to have these experiences and go through an ordeal and grow from that experience. Your comfort zone, where the magic happens. You see the visual? So if you're unwilling to expand your comfort zone, big X. But if you try something new, your comfort zone expands. And I want you to think of that spiral. I don't want you just to do it once. I want you to do it frequently, because the more you do an orbit around the hero's journey, the more amazing things you're going to be able to do. Remember when Luke Skywalker walked into the cave and Yoda said, you better not go in there? By going into the cave, that's a metaphor for whatever scares you, seek it out and face it. And when you do, it becomes very less scary. And these are just simple steps that you can take to overcome issues. Now, my path you cannot mimic. You cannot copy what I am doing. I can't copy anybody else because I'm on my own path. We all are blessed with something special and unique that makes us it gives us all different abilities. So after my mom died, I did something kind of crazy. I applied to a college stock theater in Mount Holyoke, Massachusetts as an intern, because I was a little theater geek. And the applications were due in October. But I called the lady up, the artistic director, and I told her, you should have me. You should have me come up. I'll do great things. I told her a little bit about my story. And I spent the summer doing stock theater in Mount Holyoke, Massachusetts. Stock theater is where you do a play every week, and you do the play at night, and then in the daytime you're building the next play that's going to be the next week. So in 9 weeks we did 8 plays. That's me in one of those plays. And it was kind of cool because, you kind of feel like a rock star afterwards, because it's me signing autographs with all the kids who would come see.
How cute.
And that filled me with a confidence that I never really had before, because this was not my mom pushing me to do something. This was an independent decision. Really, my drama teacher pushed me to do. And this was my first cycle around that. And it was difficult going away after your mom dies to college when you're an 11th grader and you're socially awkward. And I learned a lot, and I came back a better person. So, who's this funny looking fellow? You probably don't know. because he's my cousin. And this was another circle around the orbit for me. There was a time where I got frustrated with film in college. I didn't really think it was going to be great. Didn't know why I was in college. So my cousin, who is a good teacher of lessons, said, why don't you spend the summer working with me? Maybe you'll learn something. He's a roofer in Miami.
Oh, jeez.
So I spent the summer with my Uncle Billy on the roofs of Miami.
My gosh.
Never done anything like that before.
Probably never again.
Went right back to college and finished with honors. But had it not been for this divine moment, he's my cousin, but he initiated this. It wasn't me. It was him. And he took an interest in me. And it wasn't fun working on the roofs, but I learned a lot. I learned a lot about life. Whatever you do, become the best at it. I wrote a book because I wanted to be the best at what I do. And I write all the cases that come out. When I do that, when I write them out, it sticks in my head, and then I type them up, and then it becomes a book. So whatever you do in life, I would suggest you do it with all your heart, and you be the best at it. Because why else would you want to do it? And then you're just working, you're not doing something you love. I love this quote by Robert Frost, Two Roads Diverge in One. There's really no better way to say it, but don't take the big comfy route. Take the one that has some challenges. Oh, another cycle was when I was invited to go to a third world country to study shamanism in the mountains of Peru. That's not something I would normally do. But why not, right? Someone invited me, so I went, and this is Machu Picchu, which is one of the most ancient ruins in the world, and discovered by Americans in 1955, but we don't really know how it got there. These are real shamans. I spent a week studying with them. I did something called an ayahuasca ceremony, which is not something I would normally do, but I learned a lot. And that is me with hair. I think I looked older there. So, I'm going to talk about a couple of my heroes that really inspire me. The first one is my wife, Jackie. I love you, Jackie. And it's good to have a Jackie because she lets me do this, right? And if it wasn't for Jackie, I probably would not be as inspired because she gets behind me and she motivates me. And I love you very much, so thank you. And she can get the water, too.
It's beautiful.
So Jackie is one of my heroes. I have a couple more. This is a dear, dear friend of mine. His name is Chris Chopin. Fortunately, he passed away October 8th, natural causes. It's sad because he would have just turned 42 last week, March 23rd.
Oh my goodness.
And I was in his wedding party, and we worked together for a while, and he I was 5 years older than him. I was his kind of mentor, he was my mentee, but Chris is one of the most brilliant people I have ever met in my life. And he had this incredible wit about him. And first of all, his mind was like an encyclopedia. He knew everything. And not only did he know everything, but he knew how to access it and turn it into argument or humor. He would send my wife a bonsai tree on her birthday. I mean, who does that? But he was really special. It was sad to me when he passed away because Chris was so smart. He got frustrated with people easily, and he abhorred stupidity. And it didn't look like he had a lot he has a great family, but I was in his wedding party. I didn't see him really socialize with a lot of people, so I was so sad that so many people missed out on what he had to offer. His brilliance. And then the day after he died, I looked at his obituary, and I was amazed, because I didn't know this about him. But he had a Twitter account that had over 15,000 followers. And if you read his obituary in the post, there's hundreds of entries from people from the Twitterverse that tell you how much this man impacted their lives. So I'm really happy that he impacted so many people, and I miss him. Real quick, Golden Buddha story. When you in the 1500s, there was a bunch of Buddhist monks who had this statue. This is about a ton of gold, so it's really valuable. And they heard the Burmese were going to come and attack. So they covered the statue with clay. So when the Burmese came, it didn't look like an item of value, it just looked like a stone statue. Unfortunately, the Burmese killed all the monks. So the fact that this was a gold statue, that knowledge was lost. So for centuries, this beautiful gold statue was covered by mud. And it wasn't until the 1950s that they had to move this statue to make a highway. And they calculated the weight based on how much stone would be, and they did a pulley system. And gold is much heavier than stone. So when they started lifting it up, the pulley system broke, and it fell a little bit, and a piece of it cracked. And then they realized what an amazing piece of art, and an amazing relic, an amazing thing of value that they had. And it took them all night, but they uncovered it, and this is what they found. And that was a really neat metaphor that Joseph Campbell articulated about life. When you are born as golden as this Buddha. But as you progress through life, you develop clay. People put clay on you. Your parents do. They say you're going to become a lawyer, you're going to become a doctor, and by the time you get into high school, some people can't even move. And sometimes it takes an amazing, horrific thing in your life, like a death, or losing a job, or something that cracks that outer shell. And in that moment of despair, some of that gold shines through. And that's an opportunity for you to figure out what your calling is. So at moments like that, you have an opportunity to really see what your bliss is. So in moments of great pain, I think there are also moments of great opportunity.
Yep.
Here's one of my heroes. He's no surprise, AJ. And this is an actual photo of, I think we were here in October, and this is 45 of our 11th graders listening to AJ, and we have been coming here for years with the program. I learned about the gallery, then I learned about this theater, and then I learned about Kelsey Cares. And Kelsey Cares, if you didn't hear AJ speak before, it's a 501c3, and it's meant to help struggling artists. And AJ has done something that is very unique to help artists. And it's not just about art. AJ is building a community. If you want to sell art, most dealers will charge a huge commission. AJ thought of a way, let's do a co-op and rent the wall space, and that way the artist pays a small fee but keeps all the money anything they sell in that period of time. That to me is inspirational because it's not him trying to make as much money as he can, it's him doing something that's helping others. And so when I heard about Kelsey Cares, and you heard what they did with this $1,000 earlier, they did some pretty cool stuff. So last I heard, we were at $3,700 that we raised just from doing this event, selling tickets and our sponsors, trying to hit 5,000. So if there's anyone that is motivated out there to want to help us, you can easily make a tax-deductible contribution right outside by the ticket booth. And I would encourage you to do so because it matters. Art really does matter. They don't even teach it in high school anymore unless you go to a magnet school. And that's going to affect our society in the future. So if you're inspired, like $5, $50, $1,000, whatever, any amount will help. And I believe in AJ. And I believe he's doing a good thing. And that's why I'm here to help him spread the word and to raise money for these artists. That's our grow class right underneath that song. All right, so this is some cool sacred geometry. I am going to wrap things up because I have exactly 3 minutes left, and I stay on time. And I appreciate you all coming out. I know you have other things to do on a Friday night, especially on Good Friday and Passover. So thank you for supporting AJ's vision, and thank you for taking the time to listen to me ramble on for a little bit about things that have really helped transform my trajectory. Will they change your trajectory? That will be up to you. That will be up to you as whether or not you are listening. Some people think this is voodoo.
Just
I
like
have proof of
oils.
that. I was on a survey once. But I truly believe that these principles, I don't know where I'm going in life. I didn't know 10 years ago I was going to be running this growth program and being a board member and owning a law firm. I had no idea that this was where my life was going to take me. I could have predicted this 15 years ago that I would be here right now. And I'm really excited to see where I'm going to be in 15 more years because I continue to orbit around my spiral and expand my comfort zone, hopefully in each eclipse. So thank you for taking the time to listen to me. We're going to hang out for a little bit and take some more pictures with Darth Vader if you didn't get one before. You missed Kylo Ren, he's left the building. And above all, I would encourage you all to follow your bliss.
Yes.
Thank you.